I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch One. Thanks for logging on. Today we're looking at a watch that combines a few of my favorite things. This is the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Offshore Singapore Grand Prix limited edition of 250, 42 millimeters in a combination of forged carbon and stainless steel. You can see this Singapore Grand Prix limited edition on our website, watchyouwant.com. And if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Watch You Want Inc. Now, the Singapore Grand Prix of 2008 marked the resumption of top-level auto racing in Singapore for the first time since the early 1970s. Now, that race, won under a flag of controversy by Fernando Alonso, lives in infamy, but it was a memorable occasion, and it produced a memorable watch. Built to go head-to-head with Hublot's concurrently issued Big Bang Project F-Bang Rattrapant, the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Offshore Singapore Grand Prix combines a striking trio, essentially, of polished and brushed stainless steel, forged carbon, and this gorgeous perforated calfskin leather with contrasting double-stitch strap. This is a watch that has a lot of visual impact, and in terms of the physical impact on the wrist, I have to say it's quite reasonable. First and foremost, you can see my wrist, 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference, is a little bit on the smallish side, but with a fairly typical oval profile and a flattish top, my wrist wears this one well. It is secure, it sits flush, there doesn't seem to be any tendency, because the lugs are downturned and relatively cropped, for the watch to overhang or hula hoop. It actually feels nicely balanced because with the weight reduction that comes from this forged carbon case, the broad strap and the substantial deployant clasp on the bottom counterweight it nicely, almost like a bracelet on a big sports watch with a metal case can counterbalance the weight of that metal case. This one feels very balanced top to bottom. Now it is 15 millimeters thick, so you can see although it does have a sloped bezel, it's going to be tough to fit this one under a dress cuff, but with a style this outgoing, basically a face this explosive with the red lacquer, it's not a discreet watch, so it's one you're going to want to wear outside of the cuff in any event. Now beyond that, it is a rather generous, roughly 53 millimeters from the extremity of one lug to the extremity of the other lug. So it has quite a bit of span. If that's a fit guide, just consider that not only is it 53 millimeters essentially from the end of the lug to the end of the opposite lug, but there is a little bit of virtual flare that comes about as a result of the junction between the metallic plots and the outer edge of the leather strap. So effectively, this one is pushing 60 millimeters from edge to edge once you've accounted for everything. But it does fit securely, and a big part of that is because the strap is far more flexible, being crafted of calfskin than the traditional ridged offshore hornback gaiter strap. Now the hornback is very tough. It lasts a long time, but it doesn't like to bend around a tighter, smaller wrist. The calfskin has no trouble there, so you gain a great deal of flexibility and a great deal of ergonomic flexibility as well as physical flexibility. This watch can be worn comfortably on a wrist, perhaps even a little bit smaller than mine. I would say down to about 15 centimeters in circumference, you're going to get a good comfortable fit, and the weight is not overwhelming. But I will say that the visuals of this watch are on another level. Contrast is the word here, and it's a sporty combination of white and white metal, white details and white metal, black elements and red, arguably the ultimate sporting tricolor. AP nailed it using generous amounts of Singapore flag red in conjunction with just enough Singapore flag white, and of course, because black is always in style and forged carbon fits the bill, AP integrates it nicely as a dominant theme throughout the case and the strap. Now, forged carbon has an aesthetic that's all of its own. The light box here doesn't show it to best effect, but it has a almost black marble look to it, with the fibers of the carbon fiber, which are first molded in resin and then baked in 450-degree Fahrenheit ovens. It has a quality almost of a sort of man-made marble, first molded and then finished by hand to create the same contours and the same contrast that you get on the metal, gold, platinum, and steel Audemars Piguet Royal Oak cases. It's quite dramatic, and one major advantage, in addition to its weight and its unique aesthetic impact, again, because the fibers themselves can never be molded in the exact same pattern, each one is unique, but aside from those characteristics, it's exceptionally good at absorbing chips and scratches. Because it does have that marbled sort of matrix appearance to it, it does swallow imperfections in a way that metal, especially polished and brushed metal, really can't. So this is one that is sort of foolproof in the sense that even if you do knock or scuff it, it's going to disguise your mistake. Now, the use of synthetic red on the pushers and the crown is quite impressive and contrasts nicely with the black flanks. Likewise, continuing that theme of contrast, you can see that the traditional steel hexagonal bezel bolts in the Royal Oak bezel are beautifully black PVD to jump out from within the brushed surface of the stainless steel bezel. Rarely has AP used the inset bezel bolts on an offshore to such dramatic effect, but here they really find a way to pound home that mechanical element. It takes on a little bit of the look of lug nuts on an automobile or fixing screws in the interior of an F1 engine compartment. Very dramatic. And yes, sticklers out there, I know F1 cars use center lock wheels, but moving inboard to the dial, it's got a sort of inverse take on the traditional Rolex Daytona Paul Newman. Now, oftentimes on the tricolor Paul Newman, the red will be by far the minority color between the black, the red, and the white or the silver. Here, red is taken to the nth degree with the mega tapisserie waffle pattern of the dial itself lacquered to disguise the texture and give just a general impression of the checkerboard pattern. The lacquer smooths it, and it adds something a traditional petite or mega tapisserie dial does not have from Audemars Piguet, and that is luster. The dial itself has a luster, it becomes a reflective element, and each one of those individual mega tapisserie hobnail cuts with its multiple facets has multiple reflective angles. So this dial takes on a dynamism through the light that you really don't get from the matte textured tapisserie cuts. Now there's a gorgeous motorsport style tachometer which is conical and sloping downward from the bezel to the dial, and that unifies it, ties the bezel to the dial, and creates a point of transition visually. Each one of the inset subdials features a classical white on black combination for outstanding legibility, and then for just a little bit more refinement, just a little bit more luster, that word again, you see a gorgeous metal polished chaptering around each one of the sub-registers. This is a spectacular presentation, beautiful coordination of color, and red is powerful. Black is powerful. AP wields both of them in deft fashion with the Singapore Grand Prix, and this watch, in spite of a potentially overpowering combination of potent colors, actually scores a podium, and not just a podium, but first place. From an aesthetic standpoint, faultless. And from a mechanical standpoint, you'll be happy to know that underneath this Singapore Grand Prix commemorative caseback, the watch actually features Audemars Piguet's in-house 3126 modular chronograph movement with module 3840. It's a fantastic combination of a Dubois de Praz chronograph module, so in terms of chronograph engineering, the best in the business, with AP's own in-house 50-hour bidirectional winding automatic chronograph caliber. Now, it has a nice stately 21,600 vibration per hour rate, so 3 Hertz. It also features a few refinements that its JLC-based predecessor did not. For one thing, the 50-hour power reserve easily trumps the 38 to 42 hours of the old JLC. For another, the use of a full balance bridge and a free-sprung balance gives it the leg up on most of the older JLCs, in as much as it's better at shaking off shocks, it's better off at shaking the kind of behavior that you might subject a sports watch to, and continuing to keep good time. Now, it's also refined in the sense that unlike the last generation of JLC automatics in these offshores, it winds bidirectionally, so there's no unweighted winding direction where you're going to hear or feel a rotor freewheeling. And in terms of finish, the old JLC was very good, but the AP caliber is better. Now, complexity is a given. All of the 365 parts in this 59 jewel movement are gorgeously finished, perhaps none more so than the engraved rotor, which features the coat of arms of the Audemars and Piguet families. And that's really a key distinction. The company remains family-owned, it remains relatively low volume, it remains the kind of company that can go its own way, constrain supply, and work to a standard, not to a price. Every AP offshore I see reminds me that not only did Audemars Piguet create the oversized sports watch genre, but they're arguably still the best in the business. And among the best of the best, you'll find the AP Royal Oak Offshore Singapore Grand Prix Limited Edition. Truly one of the best limited editions in the AP Offshore line. Striking, memorable, and with only 250 made, exceptionally rare. You can see it and you can buy it on our website, watchyouwant.com.